So hey, how's it going, and welcome to the Spotlight. This channel is about space travel and the news and technology related to it. So please subscribe and press the bell icon if you want to stay updated. So this video is about the Falcon 9 and its landing. Why does it land sometimes on the drone ship, and why does it land sometimes back at the landing site at the base? So let's check it out.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear.
So in order to understand its landing choice, we first need to understand what happens when a Falcon 9 needs to land. So a Falcon 9 first stage booster burns its fuel until it has about 30% fuel left, and then it separates from the second stage. After stage separation, the second stage continues along its trajectory to its parking orbit, and the first stage now has two choices: either to perform a boost back burn and change its trajectory back to the landing site, or follow its current trajectory into the Atlantic Ocean. If it does perform a boost back burn, it precisely changes its landing trajectory such that it would now fall on the landing site. But that would be a disrespect to the great Falcon 9. It is more controlled than your coffee maker making latte or your flushing poop. Well, first let's focus on this reusability thing and where does it come from. So, a Falcon 9 pretty much costs as much as a Boeing airliner, but a Boeing airliner takes on thousands of flights in its lifetime, whereas a Falcon 9 only takes one. So SpaceX decided, in order to make space more accessible, why not reuse the rocket? And they started by reusing the first stage, which was considered pretty impossible at the time. And they decided that if they could land the first stage back on land or on a dry drone ship, it could potentially reduce the cost of refurbishing the first stage astronomically. Well, the space shuttle was pretty much reusable, but its giant fuel tank was discarded after each launch, and its two solid propellant boosters always landed in the corrosive saltwater sea, which pretty much rendered them unusable or astronomically short the refurbishment costs that would pretty much render them useless. So SpaceX decided, why not land the first stage upright on dry land and gradually reduce the refurbishment to only refueling and attaching the payload as in their BFR. So that brings us to the initial question: when the drone ship and when the landing zone? See, it all depends upon the mass of the payload. The heavier the payload, the more fuel Falcon 9 needs to reach a velocity fast enough that the second stage can now go up to its parking orbit. And the more fuel it uses in order to gain velocity to reach parking orbit, the less fuel it has left for a boost back burn. Remember, it needs some fuel for a re-entry burn and to relight its engines at the time of landing. And so, the heavier the payload, the less fuel the Falcon 9 first stage has left for a boost back burn. And so, it cannot perform a proper boost back burn, and the drone ship has to be placed in the current expected trajectory of the Falcon 9 first stage. And if it's a very light payload and it has a lot of fuel left for the boost back burn, they correct their course back to the landing site on the base.
But then tell me, why would you waste so much fuel on landing the booster back when you can just place the drone ship in its current expected trajectory?
Well, you know what? Maybe that previous seeing guy was right. It does waste a bit of fuel. But remember that the recovery from the sea, with all the massive fleet and all the sailors and the salaries, adds up to quite a bit. And recovery from the sea is only advantageous when there's a necessity for it. And there's also a risk of losing a booster due to high waves, as they did at the time of the Falcon Heavy Center core. So you see, a boost back burn can always be preferred, but the recovery ship is only required where there is a necessity and there is a lack of fuel so as to not allow performing a boost back burn. Well, now to understand that, let's jump into a world-class simulator, pun intended, Kerbal Space Program.